everyone, I'm back. So I'm gonna be using these papers from Photoplay. They are by Julie Nutting paper dolls. I have that one cut apart sheet and these beautiful 11 sheets of 12 by 12 paper. They are super cute, super girly, and perfectly go with the theme of our purse album. And I also have these two 12 by 12 sticker sheets. We're going to need these because we can only use flat embellishments in this album as we don't have space for bulky embellishments. So let's start with the first page of our album. We have this top flap over here at the front. Now if you have a 4x6 vertical journaling card in your paper pack, it'll go perfectly on this particular flap. I don't have that in my paper pack that I'm using, so I'm just going to use a normal sheet of paper that measures 3 and 3/4 by 5 and 3/4. So we're going to need magnets for this page, and I'm using the Tectone magnets that are 6 mm by 1.5 mm, and I'm just going to stick one of the magnets here at the bottom of my flap. So I'm using liquid glue for the magnets as well as the papers. Now you can use your ATG gun for the papers, but I don't have that available here in India, and plus I feel the liquid glue gives you a little bit wiggle room while sticking your papers. So I'm just going to press the paper firmly down and then go over it with my bone folder as well. Now let's do the side flaps. So this we need two sheets measuring 3 inches by 5 and 3/4 of an inch. Now same as the front, here also we're going to put a paper measuring 3 and 3/4 by 5 and 3/4. Now the side flaps, again 2 pieces of 3 inches by 5 and 3/4 of an inch. This large one measures 5 and 3/4 by 7 and 3/4, and we're gonna put the second piece of our magnet here. So I'm just gonna flip my paper and place it on the first piece of the magnet that we had stuck on the top flap, and just release the second piece so it'll cling onto the first one. Put glue at the back of your magnet and just close the flap down like that. Now let it stick for a couple of seconds and hold the base and open your top flap. So our second piece of magnet is stuck where it's supposed to be. Now we are gonna cover it with our DSP. So our first page is done. Let's move on to the second one. So I'm using a 4x6 journaling card for the fold out, and I've just trimmed it down to 5 and 3/4 by 3 and 3/4. I'm just laying down all the pieces that we need for the front of the second page. So the diagonal pockets, we need 2 pieces of 2 and 3/4 by 2 and 3/4. Now just place the paper on the pocket and leave a 1/8 inch border. Now I'm just marking on my paper where the cardstock ends. Now just draw a line between those two markings. And we're just gonna trim it off. Now just erase if there are any pencil marks, and your paper fits perfectly on the pocket. So now for the second piece, we're just gonna take the first piece that we cut off, place it on the corner, and just use that as a guide to cut a second pocket off. Now let's just stick everything down. Now these two pieces measure 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. We have two here on the top and two are gonna go inside. Now let's also stick the journaling card on our fold out, and on the other pages of the fold out you can just directly put your 4x6 photos, or you can journal something. Now on the inside you have your two pieces of 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, and the center piece is 5 3/4 by 7 3/4. We're just normally gonna stick everything down. No need for magnets on this page because our fold out is gonna hold our flaps down. So the second page is also done. Now let's do the pocket that holds this page. So we're going to need two pieces of 2 3/4 by 8 inches, and just normally stick it down with your glue. After you've finished sticking everything down, we're just gonna put our page inside the pocket, and it's a little snug in the beginning, but when you put it in and remove it out a couple of times, it'll smoothen out. Let's move on to the envelope and trifold. So these are the pieces of papers that you need. So let's start by sticking the inside pieces. On the top we have two pieces of 1 3/4 by 3 3/4, and here we need two pieces of 2 inches by 3 3/4. So just make sure when you're putting this piece you don't cover the 1/8 inch gusset that we have. Now on the outside we're going to do a brad and twine closure. So I'm just marking my center where I want to put my brad. I'm just going to pierce a hole where I have made my markings. Now for the second envelope I'm just going to align it with the first one and just make a hole where I already have the hole on the first one. So let's put our brads now. So I'm gonna keep my thumb in between the brad and the paper like that, and then close it from behind so that the brad is a little raised and I have enough space to put my twine. See, just like that. Once we're done with that, let's just stick everything down. So let's attach our twine now. I'm actually using a 1.5 mm satin ribbon. So since satin is slippery, I'm just adding a knot in the beginning at the bottom, and then I'm gonna just normally roll it around. Just do that 2-3 times and you can cut it off. Now at the end, I'm gonna attach a metal charm. Now that's completely optional. If you're not doing this, then just go ahead and make a few more rounds of your twine. Now I'm just gonna trim off the excess and just repeat the same thing on your other piece of envelope. This is done. Now just flip it upside down. We've already made our markings, so just make sure that your trifolds open outwards. So here we need 4 pieces of 3 3/4 by 5 3/4 and 2 pairs of magnets. So 2 of our papers are going to go on the top and 2 are going to go on the base. So let's start with our magnet on the top and cover it with our DSP. The second magnet, we're gonna stick it exactly how we did it on the first page. And now just cover it with your paper. We're going to do the exact same thing on this side as well. And this page is also done. So let's move on to the next one. So this one is our 4x6 trifold and gatefold page. So you're also going to use a 4x6 journal card and just trim it down to 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, and we're going to need 3 pieces of magnet for this one. So the first one will go on the left side of our trifold, and I'm just going to cover it with my journaling card. Now flip your trifold to the back, and the second piece of magnet will just cling onto the first one. So just put a little glue over there and stick it down and cover it with a piece of 3 inches by 3 3/4. Now here we need 2 pieces of 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, and we'll just stick it down normally. Once you're done, let's attach the trifold over here. So apply glue only on the black cardstock area and just stick it at the center of your page and go over it with your bone folder. Now inside again you need two pieces of 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, and this also you're going to stick it down normally. Now I've been speeding up the parts where you don't need any explanation, and I'm just sticking down the papers just to not elongate the video unnecessarily. But if you feel that I'm going too fast, just please let me know, so I'll make sure I rectify that in my next tutorial. Now this next one measures 5 3/4 by 7 3/4, and here we're going to put our magnet. So it's just the same thing what we've been doing so far. Now let's put our paper on the top. And we're done with this page as well. So there's a trifold on top and then a gatefold. Now just flip your page to the back side where we have a waterfall and side flap. I'm going to use a 4x6 journaling card on top of the waterfall as well, and I've just trimmed it down to 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. Now here I'm going to use slightly larger magnets for my waterfall closure. These are 10 mm by 1 mm, and I'm going to use two of these. So let's start with the top of the waterfall. So I'm just going to put my magnet at the bottom of that first flap and cover it with the journaling card. Just burnish it well with your bone folder, and now we're going to put the second piece of the magnet. So open the flap and the magnet will just cling to the first one. Just make sure your waterfall is completely flat at the back and just stick this magnet down. So remember, we also have a pocket over here that we had kept. So first we're going to cover our magnet with the paper measuring 4 inches by 5 3/4. Now we also need a third magnet on the base. So this I'm going back to the small size, that is 6 mm by 1.5 mm, and we're just gonna attach it like we've done throughout the album now. Now just put the paper on top. This measures 5 3/4 by 7 3/4. Now let's attach that pocket on a side flap. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue on 3 sides of the pocket and just stick it down. And the paper that goes on top is gonna measure 1 3/4 by 5 3/4. I'm just gonna add a 3x4 journaling card in the pocket and going back to the waterfall. So you can either directly put your 4x6 pictures on the waterfall, or you can put cardstock, but I don't like to waste that much paper, so I'm just gonna, just to make it look pretty, put these 1/2 inch strips on the waterfall, and then whoever's using this album can just add their pictures on top. So these are 1/2 inch by 5 3/4 inch, and we have 4 pieces here. And I'm just sticking them down at the bottom of all the waterfall pieces because that's what is going to be visible when we close the mechanism. And there you go, this page is also done. So we're going to do the pocket for this page now, and again we need two pieces of 2 3/4 by 8 inches. So I'm just sticking them down normally. So let's put our page inside the pocket now. So I'm not putting my waterfall inside, I'm just going to let it hang outside the pocket. I just feel it looks nice that way. So we're done with this. Now let's move on to our last page. Here we have a gatefold and top flap, and on the back side we have the mini waterfalls and belly band. So let's start with the gatefold page. Now I'm going to put a 3x4 journaling card on top over here. Remember I told you that about that optional piece of cardstock? So this is where I'm using it to mat my card. And this is completely optional. You can use whatever size of cut apart you have in your paper collection. And I'm just going to cover the back side also with a 1-inch strip, because that's all that's going to be visible on the back when we open our gatefold. So let's just keep that aside. We're going to attach it on top in the end. So here on this page again we're going to need magnets, and the magnets go inside. So let's start with the inside first. So these are the pieces of paper that are going to go here. I'll mention the measurements as and when we go. So here we have 4 inches by 5 3/4 of an inch piece, and then we're going to put a pocket at the bottom, which is your 2 inches by 5 7/8 of an inch cardstock. I'm just gonna put glue on 3 sides and stick it down. Now our first piece of magnet is gonna go on this pocket, so I'm just gonna put glue right in the center and put our magnet and cover it with the paper measuring 1 3/4 by 5 3/4. Now next we need 2 pieces of 3 3/4 by 5 3/4 for our flaps. The right one we're just gonna put as it is, but on the left one we're gonna have the second piece of our magnet. So I'm just gonna put my paper on top of the first magnet, cling the second one and close down the flap. Now lift your paper a little and detach the magnets and then open your flap. Now just cover it with your paper. So all these 4x6 flaps, if you don't want to put the DSP, you can also directly put your 4x6 pictures, or you can put some matching cardstock if you don't want to waste the DSP and use it for another project. So yeah, that's just a tip if you want to save your DSP. So on the outside also again I'm using 2 pieces of 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. I'm just going to put my 3x4 journaling card over here. So I'm just covering the cardstock with glue and place it in the center. Next is a side pocket. This paper measures 2 inches by 5 3/4. Now inside on the top we have 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, and at the bottom we have 6 inches by 5 3/4. So now this magnet is again optional because I'm using the small ones. I need to attach one more, but if you have strong magnets you won't need to put one on this top flap over here. And this magnet is just going to cling on to the first two that we've put initially. So just put some glue and stick it down and cover it with your paper. So this is 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. So our last piece of magnet is going to go here. It's the same way that we've been doing so far. And this paper, as I mentioned, measures 6 inches by 5 3/4. I'm just adding tags to my pockets, and let's move on to the last page. So I'm just using my 3x4 cards over here on the waterfall. I've trimmed it down to 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. Now for the waterfall I'm again doing a magnet closure. So I'm using my 10 mm by 1 mm magnets. I'm gonna stick one on the first flap at the bottom and cover it with our paper. It's pretty much the same way we did the 4x6 waterfall on our page 6. So the same thing on the left side as well. And our second piece of magnets will go inside our flaps right here. Now I'm just going to finish the belly band first because that's the only piece that does not have magnets below it. So this measures 2 1/4 by 5 3/4. Now let's finish our magnet. So here just make sure your waterfall is completely flat and just stick your magnet, it will cling on to the first one, and cover it with a piece of 2 3/4 by 5 3/4. So next I'm going to use the smaller magnets again to attach my flap to the base. So just cover your previous magnet with the paper, cling on the loose magnet, put glue on the back of the magnet and close your flap, hold on to the base paper and open the flap. The same thing that we've done throughout our album. So this paper measures 3 inches by 5 3/4, and the same measurement goes on the left side of the belly band as well. So I'm speeding this up again because I'm doing the exact same thing on the left side as well. And this is done. So on the rest of the waterfall again I'm doing my 1/2 inch strips. So these are 1/2 inches by 2 3/4 into 4 pieces on each side, so total 8. Now again you can just directly put your 3x4 photographs, or you can put 3x4 journaling cards or matching cardstock. It's completely up to you. And with this all our pages are done now. So let's just have a quick look. We have the first page, then we have the envelopes, and then the trifold page and the last page. So let's move on to our cover now. Let's start with the waterfall on our front and side cover, and I'm just rounding off my corners of the waterfall closure. This is completely optional, and I'm gonna put magnets on the closure to secure the waterfall mechanism. So just put one magnet on top of our waterfall closure piece and cover it with a paper measuring 1 1/4 by 5 1/4. So I'm just rounding the corners on this as well, just to match my cardstock, and I'm just gonna stick it down. Next we're just gonna cover the back with again a piece of 1 1/4 by 5 1/4. Now let's move on to our waterfall. So on top we need a piece of 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and we're going to put our second piece of magnet here, and it's going to be the same way we've been doing it so far. And let's cover it with our paper. Now for the rest of the waterfall, I'm again using the 1/2 inch strips, that is 1/2 inch by 6 3/4, but you can put your 5x7 photographs directly. And we're done with the waterfall. So let's move on to the stacked pockets on the back and side cover. So on both our pockets we need 2 pieces of 2 inches by 8 1/4 inches. for the base, we need a piece measuring 3 inches by 8¼ inches. Now next is our inner spine. So this measures 1 5/8 by 8¼ inches. And the last one is supposed to be 3 1/8 by 8¼ inches. And I'm just going to place it on my cover like that, where I have a 1/8 inch border. And I'm just going to mark where my 3 corners are of my cover. Now draw a line between the point we have at the center with the ones at the side. And now just cut on those lines that you've just drawn. And this is how it should look. So just erase any leftover pencil marks. And now before we attach this to our cover, we're going to put a magnet here. So again, I'm using the larger one that I have, that is 10 mm by 1 mm, and I'm just going to stick one piece right here and cover it with our paper. So our inside cover is done. Now before we move on to the outside, we're first gonna attach our pages to the album, and we're gonna start with the last page. So remove your tape backing and attach your page to the hinge, but leaving 1/8 inch gap between the page and the base. Now once you're sure, just press it down and then go over it with your bone folder. Now the next page is our trifold and waterfall page with the pocket. So this is going to be easy to attach because you're just going to attach the pocket to the base. Now make sure it's completely straight and don't forget to leave that 1/8 inch gap between your page and your base, and just go over it with your bone folder. And let's add our main page back inside the pocket. Now next, remember we had split our hinge, so here we're going to put the 2 pieces of our envelope and trifold. Now just make sure trifold is opening outward, and you're going to attach the bottom part of the envelope to the hinge. Now let's do our first page. Now this again is going to be easy because you're just going to attach the pocket to a hinge. Now let's add the page to the pocket, and we are done. Now let's do the outside. So turn the album towards you, and we're going to start with the front cover that measures 6 3/4 by 8 1/4. Now the second piece of our magnet is going to go here, the first being the one we had put on the inside cover. So just cover that with your paper and cling the loose magnet to the first one. Cover it with glue and just carefully close your album and make sure you align the cover correctly and just press it down. Now this time we're going to let it dry for a minute so that we're sure that we're not going to accidentally move it while putting our paper on top. And once you're sure that it's dried, just put your paper on top. Now after this, just close your cover and check the magnets. Now I know that my magnets are not strong enough to hold this down, so I'm going to add a third one. But before you decide to do that, just keep some weight on your cover first for like an hour and see if the magnets hold. If not, then you can just add the third one like I'm doing. Now once the magnets are settled, let's cover it with our paper. So this is again 3 1/8 by 8 1/4, and we're going to cut it exactly how we did it for our inside cover. A little secret, I'm just in love with the combination of this floral paper and red stripes. It's so cute. Anyway, sorry, we'll move on to the spine now. So this is 1 5/8 by 8 1/4, and we're just gonna stick it down normally. Now our spine at the bottom is going to measure 1 1/2 by 8 1/4. Now let's move on to our back cover. So this measures 6 7/8 by 8 3/8. So we're pretty much done with the outside cover as well. The only thing left is a handle, because a purse without a handle will look slightly incomplete. So we're going to take out that piece of cardstock that we had kept aside, which measures 1 1/4 by 8 1/2, and we're going to put 1 inch by 8 1/4 inch pieces on both the sides of our cardstock. So after this, we're just going to take our bone folder and start curving the handle, and on the edges we're going to curve it on the opposite side. So this is how it should look. Now let's attach it to the top of our album, just like this. So let's put some glue only on the two sides of our handle. And just attach it to the spine at the top, and make sure you leave equal distance on both the sides. Since it's liquid glue, you're going to have a little bit of wiggle room. Once you're sure about the placement, just press it down. And this is also done. So the last thing that's remaining is our inlets. I've not covered it with any paper because there won't be enough space to put it in the pocket if we add paper as well as photos. So I will suggest to put your photos directly on the cardstock. So you can go ahead and embellish this however you want to. Now we don't have a lot of space for bulky embellishments here, so we're only gonna use flat embellishments. So I'm gonna use these matching stickers that I have with this collection. And finally, I'm gonna say it, we are done with this tutorial. I'm so happy I finally finished my first tutorial. I've been planning to do this for months and I was so nervous, but I hope I've done a decent job and you guys like it. And please share your feedback in the comment section. I'm really looking forward to that so that I can make more tutorials. And if you want to see those, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you make this album, please do share your projects with me. I would love to see them. You can get in touch with me on my Instagram or my email. And have a great day. Bye.